First, here's a little story that's worth noting. Pope Francis is continuing to prove he is a pontiff of the people by keeping the lines of communication completely open. He reportedly continues to personally call people who reach out to him seeking counsel. A woman who became pregnant after having an affair with a married man sent the Pope a desperate letter. She said the father wanted her to have an abortion. She tells an Italian newspaper she was shocked last week when her cell phone rang and it was the Pope himself. He assured her that the baby was a gift from God and she'd never be alone. If the baby is a boy, she plans to name him Francis.
The President, of course, has the authority to act, but it's neither his desire nor his intention to use that authority absent Congress backing him.
I put this before Congress for a reason. I think we will be more effective and stronger if, in fact, Congress authorizes this action. I'm not going to engage in parlor games now, Jonathan, about whether or not it's going to pass.
But your Deputy National Security Advisor said that it is not your intention to attack if Congress doesn't approve it. Is he right?
I don't think that's exactly what he said, but I think I've answered the question.
What Assad feels in terms of our response will not be a pinprick. He will know it when it happens. This will be more than just what some people have talked about.
If you're going to say that a congressional vote to give the authorization will show that America is speaking with one voice, then surely the converse has to be true, that if the Congress doesn't authorize it, America is also speaking with one voice.
Well, not at all, because the President obviously would still believe that we should do it.
I'm not drawing an analogy to World War II, other than to say when London was getting bombed, it was profoundly unpopular, both in Congress and around the country, to help the British. Doesn't mean it wasn't the right thing to do, to bring the analogy closer to home. The intervention in Kosovo, very unpopular. But ultimately, I think it was the right thing to do. And the international community should be glad that it came together to do it.
It was an interesting news conference, Charles.
I don't think you've ever seen a greater display of indecision, ambivalence. Sometimes you can use studied ambiguity to scare the other guy, to make it useful. With Nixon, it was said that the Soviets thought he was so potentially nuts that actually he deterred a lot of action because you never knew what he was going to do. But he could do damage and he could be decisive. With Obama, we've never seen that. The only action he's taken that was decisive was tripling the number of troops in Afghanistan. When he announced it, in the same sentence, he announced that we were leaving. So he announced ambivalence, ambiguity, uncertainty. How do you send a nation in a war when you are clearly unsure? And the ambivalence he has about the Syria operation has been on the table for 2 years. He says Assad has to leave, he doesn't act. He says there's a red line, he doesn't act. Everybody understands that here and in the region. And that's why a lot of people, including me, who would support a president who is committed here, who is serious about this, and who had a plan and a strategy, are saying, can we really entrust an opening into a civil war with a president who clearly doesn't want to be on the scene? That's why he's gotten no support internationally and no support at home. His excuse now is to say, well, the rebels aren't all good guys, but of course that's a result of the fact of 2 years of indecision. There are strategic ideas which McCain and others, the leader of the southern element of the rebels, has proposed. Hit the air bases, disable the air support that Assad has. That would have an effect on the ground, and the rebels in Damascus are prepared to react. But Obama apparently wants a demonstration strike, and that's why he's in trouble.
The August jobs report came out. Jobless report today showed the unemployment rate had dropped by 1/10 of a point to 7.3%. There's some bad news in there as well. 500,000 Americans dropped out of the labor force. The White House called it solid and steady job growth, but job gains in both June and July were both revised downward by 74,000.
This is what happens when you become a European-like country. Europe has had exactly this kind of chronic unemployment for decades, and we haven't had it. It's now a part of our lives, and I think it's because we have this incredibly slow recovery with a government that overregulates, has been stifling the sort of natural energy of a free economy, which is very strong in the U.S., and what we're getting is kind of stagnation.
All right, Bill Clinton on the stump for health care. Charles, what about this, former president?
Well, he's supposed to go out and to cheerlead for it. And, you know, he gave a professorial analysis which shows that he does what he wants. You can put him on the stage, but you have no idea what he's going to say. He wasn't against Obamacare, of course. He supports it. But he talked about the problems, and I don't think it helped the administration one bit. Wrong. Clear winner this week, Tian Tian. Can you show his picture? And the clear loser is Jiao Jiao. These are pandas. There's Tian Tian, he's the winner. Jiao Jiao, who's actually hard to tell them apart, is a loser. Now, there was a cub born at the National Zoo, and it was unknown who the father was. The mother, Mai Jing, is not talking, so they had to go to the lab, and Jiao Jiao lives in San Diego. He's a prodigious breeder, 5 cubs. He was the favorite, but Tian Tian, who's the mate of the mother here in D.C., was described unkindly by the Washington Post as having poor natural technique, and yet he came out as the father, so I congratulate him.
This has been a Sunfish production.